Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hi there. Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today, our guest is Jillian Coburn. Jillian is a sexual assault survivor, an advocate, entrepreneur, and is stepping out to share her story about implementing positive change into government legislation. Now, Jillian has worked on some legislation, and she will share with us about that today. And I have a lot of respect for women who do that, because we know that's not easy. It's like there's people in legislation that will try to silence us on purpose, intentional, and sometimes not intentional. So, Jillian, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I anticipated this moment to finally meet you in person and be on your platform that is just reaching limits that women should thrive for. So thank you so much for having me.
That's my pleasure. Can you give us an update on where you are at with legislation? Is there something you're currently working on or something that recently passed?
So we did not triumph in Texas. Unfortunately, House Bill 206 did not even meet the floor. Victims did not have their ability to say their stories and why we should open up the statute of limitations in the state of Texas. So that's a really sad thing, but you know what? We have another year. They only go to session every 2 years, whereas in Louisiana, it's every year. So we're looking at 2024 to where they'll reintroduce the bill, and then we'll go again, pushing forward to change the law out in Texas. So yeah, I'm back in Louisiana. So there are certain things that I am working on with certain teams that I can't really talk about right now because they haven't been introduced into the Capitol. But there's a lot of interesting things going on, and I'm liking the change. It's giving the ability for victims to thrive. It's teaching policymakers, not only policymakers, people in authoritative positions such as the police, nurses, doctors who get victims that come in, a better way to approach them versus, maybe a reason why someone may not come out about their abuse, right? So I'm really liking the gear of things in a lot of different states, not in just Texas, not in just Louisiana, up north too. There's a lot of policy making going on, allowing education and really focusing on institutional crimes and opening up the space so that survivors can have the ability to heal, which is super important because when I know for me, it was really challenging to go back into my community, right? Especially coming back home. And it's really important to have other people that have the same belief systems and upbringing that you may have that lifts you up for your healing recovery, right? For everyone to be on board. So again, it's really nice to see other people creating programs or nonprofits out there for the ability for victims to come out and heal and be the gift of God that God created them to be.
Yeah. So for our YouTube listeners, we're going to get Jillian to turn off her video because she's in the country. So we're sorry about that. So we'll just listen to her voice. She's got a nice soothing voice. So Jillian, go ahead and turn it off because it's freezing a lot and they're not seeing your beautiful smile as I am able to from time to time.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, you can't help where you live, girl. Plus, it sounds like a peaceful place. So we'd rather you be in a peaceful place with the things that you've been through. My next question, Jillian, is why did you get into trying to do policy change when it often is filled with disappointment? Like, how do you do that after all the other disappointments in your life? What keeps you going? Yeah.
I would say what keeps me going is knowing that I'm being heard. And in order to be heard, you really got to touch legislation. I mean, it's okay. So I'm all about Constitution Week. That's approaching on the 17th of September. I'm super excited about it. I don't know if you know anything about your constitutions and why they're there. But it's super important to me because it's about freedom. It's why we have America, right? And again, you got to go to the senators, you got to go to the politics who we vote into, positions into our districts. And hopefully they're on the right team and they're wanting to see change and they're not wanting the good old boy system, right? Maybe they're wanting to give the ability to see that, emotional abuse does happen and it really does damage a person. And if you don't take the techniques and go seek a doctor and go get some help, you begin to bleed out everywhere. And if you have children, it's upon your children. If it's not your spouse, it's your brothers, your sisters. And so that's what keeps me going. It's because I don't want people to experience what my friend and I went through or what I've seen victims go through. I want the pathway to be easy. It shouldn't be another challenge, right? It's already a challenge to come out about something that's uncomfortable that people don't want to talk about. It's taboo, right? So I guess that's what keeps me going, is knowing that I'm alive, I'm being a good citizen, and I'm going to do what I have to do to fight for others. If they're wanting me to share their stories, I am the biggest cheerleader they need, because I think everybody needs a great cheerleader. I mean, think about a child, if you're having problems, not problems, he's a boy going to a new school, right? It's not the same group of people. And so my son needs to learn that this behavior is not okay. And so we have to point out these behaviors and make people aware, right, of what they're doing wrong and realize that it's just like the cycle of abuse. If you continue to do the same thing over, like the person's like, oh, I'm sorry, let me buy you some roses and everything will be great, and then you just take that person back and you don't accept the behavior, right? And so I guess I'm out there to be like, yeah, you're wrong. This is not okay. We have so many wounded people walking amongst us. What are you guys doing? Isn't that important? I think that's super important, So that's what keeps me going, is because I do want change. I just want people to be happy. I want everyone to seek salvation and go to heaven. That's the honest to God truth. But honestly, I just want life to be heaven on earth. And it can be possible if we have good vibes that create that, right? And we're positive amongst everyone. And we're like, yeah, you got this, and knowing that, I tell people when I work with them, hey, this is the hardest thing you'll ever have to do. I'm going to tell you that right up front, I
think so. Yeah.
You're going to be at the pit of hell, it's terrible. And that's the honest to God truth. And I cannot lie to someone that I'm working with because they can't lie to themselves, because you have to take that step to be like, I've had enough. I'm willing to come forward and I'm going to do whatever it takes. It means that I'm sacrificing everything that I have left in myself, right? I know that my truth is going to be heard. I know that this behavior somehow is going to be stopped, right? And I'll be able to go on with my life, and I think that's important, is that you forgive yourself, knowing that you did not have any control over what happens, right? And forgiving the other person so that you have a brighter outcome and paving your way of walking the walk that you choose to walk.
Right. Well, thank you for that. I love your passion. What part of your, personal story as a child or young woman are you feeling okay to share with my audience? I like to connect with other women out there. Like, what have you gone through that's traumatic or abusive that you feel healed enough or to share at this point?
Absolutely. My first abuse happened when I was about 15 years old. And it's interesting because I did profound 7 years of EMDR therapy, right? It's not talk therapy. It's stimulants in your hand. You create a safe area for yourself. And I recommend anyone who's ever been through any type of traumatic experience, try it out. Maybe it works, but there's so many modalities, not just talk therapy, out there that are life-changing. So when I was 15 years old, I was with a boy. He was quite older than I was. And the first physical altercation I ever got into, I was 15. And I didn't even know it until I wrote my book, reflecting upon what had happened to me. And at the time I was so heartbroken and I was like, I can't believe he's going to jail. He'd gone to jail too, because the people that were with, they called the police, right? And we're just so young and dumb. And I think that would be like the lesson I would, tell people, because I was so young and dumb. I had a child right out of high school. I just got raped literally a month prior to that, right? I had got a rape kit. They forced the Plan B, and I'm totally against abortions, took that. And I think that's why I got pregnant with Gabby so soon, right after that. And I never dealt with it, right? I never dealt with the rape. I dealt with the rape whenever I was walking House Bill 492 in Louisiana that we passed, which opened up the statute of limitation. And I really broke out in therapy talking about it, right? And it's really sad that I wasn't educated, but it's not something my mom probably would have never taught me, right? Like, oh, don't, go drinking and let boys drug you and get raped. Like there's predators out there, guys that want young, gross, like they're gross, they're predators. And there's a lot of people out there that desire that, that's why there's so much human trafficking going on. If there's a demand, supply and demand goes up, it's crazy. But those were like the three first traumatic experience. And then getting married at 17, getting pregnant and then getting married and being married to a guy I didn't even know. And I did it just because I was Catholic and I didn't want to be like, have a child out of wedlock. I didn't even know this guy. And I got married thinking that I would have like this fairy tale life. And it was full of batter, of he would drink and do drugs and he would become a different person. And, it was really hard to leave. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. My dad was dying of cancer. I didn't know what to do. Scared. I mean, my dad always fixed my problems, and I had to make a decision. And I did. And I left. And it was the best thing I could ever do. It was so freeing.
Was there domestic violence in that
feeling
situation?
That I was alone. And I had, severe. I mean, like, I remember I finished college. I got a degree in education. And I started working at a impoverished school here in Lafayette, Louisiana, Holy Family. And I was making like $17,000 a year, girl. And with a college degree, like what? And I had this horrible husband who would just get completely wasted and would isolate me at home and would take all our money. And it was just, oh my God, it was the worst time of my life. It really was. It was a sad time of my life. And it was sad because I had lost my dad and then I had to like start all over and I didn't have any tools or techniques in my back pocket, right? Life skills at that. And, but man, I had a great mom who's a warrior and he's like, I'm not paying for your stuff and you have a college degree and you need to get a job. You need to get your shit together. Excuse my language. And I think that's what sparked and fired something in my soul to be like, no one's ever going to hurt me again. But look, I had 3 more domestic violence relationships after that. I mean, so it's not like, oh, I'm magically not being abused anymore over here. No, it happens financially. It happens sexually, even in marriages. When you say no, consensual sex is, yes, I want sex. When you say no, that is not sex. 2 parties have to agree, right? So that can happen. And then, there's a lot of things that can happen in marriages that people don't talk about because they're scared to talk about it. And it's a scary thing, it's a scary thing, especially if you're like a woman who hasn't had a job in like 20 years. And then you decide one day, like, I'm not taking this anymore. What am I going to do? And so you get a job and then the husband's like, I'm not going to pay you any child support and good luck, and you just, something innately as a woman inherently in you that's embedded in you is like, get up. You gotta survive for your children and you just show up. And I guess I love being a woman and I'm about women's rights because I have that ability. I gave birth to 3 beautiful children and I chose that, right? I created that. If it wasn't for me, sacrificing my life literally so that they could feed off of me to be the beautiful humans they are, they wouldn't exist. And so, it's just, domestic violence is hard. And that's why I did start doing the work for lobbying. And it was because my heart was about helping. I've helped so many of my friends leave their husbands who were, doing god awful things to them, like smothering them with pillows, or like slapping them across the face. God, I don't want any of that. I mean, that's violence.
Right.
That's abuse. That's physical abuse. I know of a woman of mine that I worked with who left her husband, and it was a scary thing of her leaving at the time. He would force her to have, sex, and it's just horrible. I mean, it's just, again, you don't know what happens behind closed doors. And I think we really need to be gentle with people. I'm a very gentle person. My husband's not a gentle person. He's ex-military. And so he's a work in progress. And so I'm teaching him how to be gentle, right? And I think it is something we should teach others, is to be gentle and to be compassionate and to be kind and to be understanding, because we never know what that other person's walking. I mean, and I can share what I've walked, and man, it's been times that I did not want to be here, but I had to show up again, because the things that kept me alive are my children. They needed a mom, and it would be a very selfish thing to be like their dads, or, not show up to be the awesome person that I am, So I have children that are in a work in progress to be gentle, kind, amazing, bill changing, want to be badass attorneys, kids that want to change the world because of me, and giving the ability to speak and giving the ability to have a voice, and teaching my daughter that it's not okay to have a man or a boyfriend abuse them. And that's a cool thing, because I wish I had that growing up, because again, what we know is only what we've been taught. And so we have to go out there and learn, right, by experience. And so I'm becoming wiser and wiser every day with my gray hair.
It sounds like despite your traumas, you were able to, parent pretty well. I'm sure your parenting hasn't looked perfect, because that doesn't exist. But it sounds like you got some good key values to your children. Would they agree?
Yes, I would totally agree with that. And, all of my children are unique in their own way. I have a 23-year-old who is at law school at Barry in Orlando. And I have an 18-year-old who's at University of Tampa. And so he just started school. So that's been interesting. And then I have another 10-year-old who started a new school, 4th grade, all boys school. And so again, it's just been interesting how we all manage our emotions and how we show up in times of crisis, and having them, I guess it's so interesting how calm I am now versus the 25-year-old or the 21-year-old Jillian. And it's super cool to me to, when I reflect every night, like what could I have done differently, right? Or like, where did I help someone out? Because like I always tell myself how awesome I am to show up. And I think that that's cool to look at how we can show up differently, because again, I don't know what my 23-year-old maybe experienced in Orlando, or the 18-year-old in Tampa, or the
No, you're cutting out. I'm going to turn off my video, see if that helps.
Like the kindest, gentle person, and show them that it's okay to show up the way they're showing it. Hello.
Oh, you're back.
Karen?
Okay. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
I'm still here. I was trying to turn off my video because your audio went out for a little bit. So I thought I was trying to just pare down what I have in case it helps the recording. I don't understand technology really well. So Jillian, we didn't hear
Neither
all
do
of
I.
that.
I'm terrible text.
So let's just...
Sorry, I talk so much. I mean, I could talk all day to you. Let's move on.
Maybe I could ask you this and see how it goes. You talked about managing feelings and emotions. How do you do that now?
So a cool tool that I'll share with you guys that I do in my house. Okay. So I have a ton of magnet boards with calendars on them. But on the board, I have red, yellow, and green dots that are magnets. And so now that it's only the three of us, my husband, my youngest, and myself, if we're having a bad day, put the red dot near your name. So I know that I don't need to fuss at you. And if I do fuss at you, I'm going to softer way know that maybe something is bothering you so that you don't ignite, right? Yellow means just cautiously come at me. Something might have affected me. I'm trying to like move forward from it because I'm always about resetting. Like, okay, something bad just happened. Don't ponder on it because the more that you focus in on something, the more you will create of it. So the more negative you put out there, the more negative that you're going to get out. So I try to teach my children and my family, let's like take a little pauser. Let's figure out what happened and let's reset. But you got to reset because you got to restore it, right? It doesn't mean that like you fully like gotten over the situation, but you got to like really manage those emotions because again, you can't pour out your feelings onto everyone, you know? So that's what I do in the house. Another good way that I deal with my 10-year-old is that I have them draw and color because kids really can't vocalize what they're feeling. Lonnie can, my youngest can, they all can, all of them, but sometimes it might be hard to explain, right? So drawing it out and asking like, what can I do differently? Or like, what can I do to assist you? I think is always key questions to ask young ones as a parent, right? Yeah. And for myself, you know, I use the same tools that have been working my whole entire life since I've figured it out, I guess. You know, I gotta ask myself who I'm being at that moment because I do have post-traumatic stress. I have complex trauma too. And, you know, I have to reset. I have to ask myself, okay, who am I being right now? All right. What's going on there? What do I need to tell that 18-year-old, 21, 23, whoever that person I'm being at that moment? What do I need to tell her? Because something's showing up that I need to like recognize, right? So I do a lot of that. I do a lot of self-talk to myself.
Good. That's actually really good. That's how we change how we think. So you mentioned a book earlier. How many books do you have out?
I have 3 books.
Okay. They weren't mentioned in your bio.
Oh, that's okay.
Well, do you want people to buy your books?
My Ugly Truth, Life. Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Did you say The Ugly Truth?
I'll ask her right now. Yes,
well,
My Ugly Truth, Life Beyond Abuse.
Life Beyond Abuse.
I'll put it in the chat.
It's possible she sent it and I didn't see it. Like most of what I received was about your legislation work. Okay, so the first book is The Ugly Truth, Life Beyond Abuse. Is that right? Oh, yeah, you got it in the chat. Good, yes. Awesome. Okay. Do you want to put your other 2 in there?
And then Spicy Sage. Yeah, I'm putting them in right now. And then there's a new one that's out. Let me see what it's called. Goodness gracious, let me look. It's about 13 other women, and it's basically like I dedicated a chapter to the ending of what happened with my case, so I didn't have to like retell the story again. But I'm actually working with a couple of survivors on a documentary that we're putting together right now.
Ooh, does it have a title yet?
No, it doesn't. So it's in the works, and I'm really curious because that's something that I did want to do, was to document what had happened, because I had so much footage of my case and everything, and you know, just how quietly the church just never recognized that they pay, you know, because if you would go down to the courthouse and Google my name, you would pull up how much I was paid out, and then you would question, well, what's going on here? You know, why are they writing checks for moral, it's moral something is what was written on the check. I have it. I don't remember what it was. But I would question it as a Christian and as a Catholic, you know. Again, if we don't talk about the things that are truly happening, no one knows, and it's all a facade.
Okay, so our listeners who don't know about this, what happened in the Catholic Church? Are you allowed to talk about it? When you got your check, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am allowed to talk about it. They're not allowed to, you're not in 2021, I believe it was, or it could have been sooner than, I think it was maybe 2012. There was a charter in Dallas that you could not gag a victim from coming out and talking about what had happened to them.
No, I mean, like after you receive a settlement check, sometimes it's a clause.
No, it isn't. Not on this case, at least.
Awesome. Yeah, well, it puts some survivors in a, go ahead.
Awkward. Oh, definitely. I've worked with some that I'm like, what do you mean you can't talk about it? And then it's like, wow, that's crazy. So my third one, I'm gonna write it in right here. Never fear.
Okay, so were you abused by someone in the Catholic Church, a priest, a nun, someone else, a teacher?
Yes, I was abused by a healing priest, Thomas Max Smith is his name, and he was out of Arkansas. He was a Jesuit priest, and he was idolized here in Southwest Louisiana. He had a pilgrimage called the Armada, and he believed, and he had like a council, and that the Vatican was looking into to see, because he had healed people, right? And so a friend of mine went to see him looking to get some healing done, and we ended up being digitally funded by this in particular priest, and we reported it, and they didn't do anything really about it until I had a file, and so the other victim filed a federal lawsuit, excuse me, because we were in Texas. We were living in Texas. The other victim still lives in Texas, against the Diocese of Lafayette and the Diocese of Lake Charles. And we pulled from the Diocese of Lake Charles, and then we went forward from the Diocese of Lafayette. And my abuser did die during the lawsuits. And on May the 26th of 2022, they settled out of court. Mm-hmm. Never received an apology.
Ooh, I just did a master class.
That's all I ever wanted. Okay. All I ever wanted was an apology. Maybe I'll get it. Maybe I'll get it. But you know what?
You deserve one.
And I fought through. And yeah.
You may not get it, though.
Because it's not, money doesn't buy you happiness. I don't think I will. My uncle did, though, when I was passing House Bill 492 in Louisiana. The bishop that I asked for an apology from, he called my uncle to apologize to my uncle, who my uncle was an abuse victim by a nun and two priests. And he apologized to him and said so sorry that you had to endure, because my uncle, he's now deceased, Dan Edwards, was a Catholic priest, and he became a priest so that no one would ever be abused under his watch, right? And he died also not in 2022, he died in 2021. And was it 2021 or was it 2022? No, it was 2021. But he got an apology, and that made me feel good that I was able, I passed this bill, and I was able, because right after I'd seen my uncle, 3 days later he passed. So it was nice to hear that all the work that I had done set him free, because he was ready to go straight to heaven.
Oh, beautiful. That's a nice ending for him after what he'd been through.
Yeah.
So beautiful, you're a survivor. Yeah. You're a survivor of sexual assault, domestic violence, religious trauma. Am I missing anything?
All of the above. Yep. I'm a rape victim. I was raped at 17. So,
yeah.
What has been the most?
I know you're thriving too, because your work on legislation proves that. Tell me, what's, other than EMDR and being involved in legislation and using your voice and writing your books, what else would you say has been super healing on your journey?
Gosh, moving to Texas was the most therapeutic thing I had ever done in my whole entire life. Moving away from the only place that I knew about, right? The place that had hurt me the most, and moving to a place that I never knew about on Lake Travis, and having the ability to be on blue water at, literally the drop of a hat, and just being outside. And then even moving here, I do a lot of gardening, I'm always outside. I love being outside. And I think it's super important to just, when you're outside, I don't watch the news, okay? Because I have a high nervous system. I try to do anything and everything that affects the nervous system. And I educate myself. So you educate yourself about your nervous system, that caffeine, I'm already hyperactive. I'm attention deficit disorder. And I already have high anxiety. So just imagine, so I go outside a lot. We just started a bee starting, right? Because you have to be very cautious going in where all the bees are. And just being outside. I live on 46 acres now of land, and it's just enchanting. That's all I can say. Just get outdoors, man. Get outside. Don't ponder on the things that hurt you. Ponder on what makes you happy. Figure out what it is that makes you happy and focus on that. That's what I can tell people.
I love that. I love that a lot. So for our listeners today who resonate with you, do you do any coaching? Happiness. Say that again. Can you repeat your last sentence?
I said the recipe for happiness is to just being yourself.
Yeah, your authentic self.
Yeah. So no, I do not do coaching. I can recommend a ton of great coaches that I do know that I have worked with and that have worked with me. The key to trust, I believe, is knowing that the person has the ability to take on whatever it is that they're asking of you. So if I would coach somebody, it would be like another child. And so I'm already coaching for one not being a child, one being my husband, and it's a challenge. And so I can't take on something that I truthfully know that I won't give what I do for everyone, and I feel like I would give more focus and attention to that than my own family. So that's why I don't coach.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. So in wrapping up, what's other than be your authentic self, do you have any last suggestions for survivors that you would like to recommend?
Don't be afraid, because that is allowing your perpetrator to just continue to win. Something that I can share is knowing that my perpetrator still being, I'm a Catholic, I'm still Catholic, right? People ask me all the time, how are you still Catholic? The Catholic Church didn't hurt me. Mary did not hurt me. Jesus himself did not hurt me. My perpetrator hurt me and stole away something that, gosh, I would never want what happened to myself happen to anybody. Wow. That is just going low. And I would say, don't be afraid, because God is good, and goodness is so light. And when we're so afraid, there's a heaviness that we hold on to. So I challenge victims to try something that does seem scary, does seem kind of makes you feeling of afraid, and try it. Because if you don't ever try it, you can't say, man, I wish I could have done that. Because I'll tell you right now, I don't wish I ever tried not to do anything, because everything that I thought that I couldn't do, I proved to myself that I can do. Our minds are so dang powerful. If we tap into it and we hold on to that amazing light that we are, you can triumph through so much. The sky's the limit.
That was so beautiful. It's been such a pleasure hosting you today. You really do have a beautiful, warm, positive spirit.
Well, thank you so much.
So I know that's God.
Thank you.
That's nice.
I'm sorry
yeah.
the video did not work.
It's all
we
good.
all are spirits, though. Yes.
It's all good. All right, Jillian, thank you again. And everyone listening, we appreciate you. Please.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Yeah. Please consider leaving a review.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.